everyone. My name is Nyemade Boiwu. I'm the Chief Content Officer here at AllGo. We are plus size review apps for those who are bigger in this world and those who love us, making sure that we are sharing the good word about things to do and places where we feel comfortable and we can all fit. I'm excited because this is another episode of Love Handles All, and I have a great couple with me today. I have Bree and Dave. Hello, how are you both doing?
Hi.
Before we jump into the love questions, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'm 34. We're originally from New Jersey. I'm an occupational therapist, and then I was a professor. And this last year, we decided to sell our house and move into an RV full time. That's where we are right now, and start traveling the country. So we have been doing that now for 3 months,
a little over
3 months. And we have at least 6 months more to go before we'll head back home for a little bit and then go from there.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm 34. I'm a vet, got out in 2018. I was a machinist, aircraft welder, and then I worked at the Navy as a machinist, and then I met my lovely wife, and she convinced me, we were working in polar opposite directions, so I moved up to a VA as a maintenance guy for a while, and then she convinced me to quit my job and travel the world.
I love that. That's awesome. So let's let's go back to the beginning. How did you two meet?
We like to say we meet how all like modern day couples I feel like meet. So we met online. We met on Bumble. I guess we did the swipe thing, and then it kind of progressed from there. Dave was a little, I would use the word aggressive. He would say appropriately interested. In that, people who have online dated know that like you swipe and then you send a message, then you don't hear back for like 5 days, and you send another message. The first day we messaged, he was like, "Can I have your phone number? I'm gonna call you." And I was like, "That's a little weird, but sure, why not?" I'm sick of being ghosted, so I suppose the opposite is better.
Right, that part.
And, he did call me, and he called me like every day thereafter, and so that's sort of how it all began.
Well, in my defense, at least, I was working second shift, so it was very hard to see or do, and it was the easiest way to communicate. That's why I was pushed to.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love like someone who doesn't make you question if they're interested or not. Like they just right off the jump.
Well, funny enough, she found out she was my girlfriend about a month and a half into dating. I invited her to come. I was working with the Elks, and I was building a Family Feud game for them, so they had to stop paying a company to do it. So I made a Family Feud game, and to test it, they had me host it for the first round to show that everything worked. So I invited her to come, and in front of 120 people, I called her out as my girlfriend in the whole group, and she got all flustered, and my dad went to her, and my dad grabbed next to her, he's like, "Oh, really?"
I was like, news to me too.
That is so cute. I love that. And you two got married 2 years ago, right? In 2021?
Yeah, we were married October 17th, 2021.
Yep.
So what was the proposal like?
So love languages come in many forms, and I'm a labor of love. That is my nature. So I actually made her a jewelry box from scratch out of a bunch of different kinds of woods, and then I got laser engraved on the inside. Time is forever, and a little affinity symbol. And I made as a machinist, I made a whole lock and key so it fully works. It's a nice jewelry box for her. Then we went to the place we met, and instead of a regular ring, I put a ring pop in there. At first.
There was a real ring though.
But yeah, then I got my grandmother's diamond ring, and I got the diamonds out of it, and I got her ring custom made from a friend of mine who's a jeweler.
That is awesome. Were you surprised, or were you kind of like expecting it?
I wasn't surprised, mainly because he did it on like the same, like I knew it was coming in theory. We talked about it. We met like when we were in our 30s already. So we were already discussing like, are we getting married or are we not getting married? Like, and so I kind of knew it was in the works because he had asked me like what kind of rings I like. And I wish I could show it to you, but we don't take our rings in the RV. I leave them home with my parents in a safe just because we never know be in the RV, and
Mhm.
it has sentimental value more than it has monetary value, so I don't want to chance it. But I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that he built a whole box without me knowing. Like, we lived
Mhm.
together already, so how he like
Oh,
managed to build the whole thing without me knowing he even built it, I was surprised by. But it was nice. We basically also got to relive like our first date, so it was
I did
nice.
it on the day that we met.
Yeah.
oh, nice. I love that. So before you two met each other, what was your dating like? Like, did you enjoy dating? Did you find it difficult? Would you have a plethora of options?
I'll go first, I guess.
How about it?
I would say no to a plethora of options. Funny enough, I feel like this is what everyone says, but right before we had started dating, I sort of deleted all dating apps, and I was like, I'm done with this nonsense.
Mhm.
Just because it's just exhausting. All of the texting, not texting, ghosting. And so it was a lot. And at that point, about a year earlier, or year or two earlier, I had come into the realization of like, I didn't want to diet anymore. Like, I wanted to be more in the like health at every size, body liberation kind of stuff. And so it was kind of hard to date in that realm, because
Mhm.
trying to find someone who also existed in that space was really difficult.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in a place where I felt like I could have diet culture in my life. So that, as if it's not hard enough to date as a plus size woman, now you add in that you also don't want to date anyone who's like actively dieting. It really cuts down your options.
Yeah.
I was a workaholic, and I was remodeling a house with limited funds at the time. So a lot of my dating life, most people looked at me and said, he's nuts. And one dater, that was it. I was she likes to say I was a diamond in the rough. I was working 13 days with 1 day off every 2 weeks. And I was working second shift at night. So when people are going out and doing things, I'm working. So me seeing people was very limited most of the time. And for the first 6 months, it was actually difficult trying to sync up and try to make things work.
Yeah. I think it's interesting and great that you decided for yourself that you're past the wanting to, like the diet and focus on losing weight and just love yourself as is. How did you approach that conversation to make sure that he was on the same wavelength of thinking as you?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly, I have to be honest, I don't know exactly how I broached it, but I think over time, like, it sort of came out. Like, right before we had met, I had done like a bunch of photo shoots. That was like a way that I was like sort of reclaiming how I looked, and they were on Instagram. So he had actually asked me about them. And they were in, various forms of, like lingerie, just photo shoots out in public. And I had done some with some really body positive photographers. And so I think that was sort of the easiest way to broach it, because it was kind of like, listen, like, I took these photos because this is sort of where I'm at in my life, and I'm just curious, like, where you're at. And I would say when we first met, he wasn't fully on board with the non-dating. He was maybe like teetering with the idea that, like, I don't want to waste my life, my whole life dieting, but
Yeah.
maybe not far on board as we are now.
That's pretty true.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question: is were you already there? Is that something that you've worked towards thinking more of?
Her or me?
You, sorry, Dave.
Well, the military had me doing a lot of diet culture even when I first got in. I barely made the waist requirements at 18 years old. So a decade later, when I'm still struggling to keep my measure, since I had to have a 39-inch waist to stay in, it became a struggle. That's part of the reason I decided to get out, because I was just tired of fighting about trying to keep a physical size when my body just wants to be what it is. So I was kind of on board with it, but I didn't have the right mindset or mentality. I'm going to say she brought a lot of that in. She gave me a lot more to think about, put it into better perspective, and gave me a better grounding on how to handle it.
It's good. It's good that you were able to sort of link up together and make that transition together. As far as dating, though, like each of you for your preferences, Well, I'll start with you first. Actually, I'll switch the order this time. I'll start with Dave. Have you always had a preference for plus size, curvier women, or is this like one of your first, or is it like you just date all over the spectrum all the time?
A lot of times I try never to judge by size of a person. I try to keep an open mind, but I had a slight leniency towards bigger women.
And did you ever care in regards to like what your family or friends thought about that preference?
Occasionally the anxiety did get to me, but I tried not to let it influence me.
What caused the anxiety?
Well, my whole family's military, so diet culture and how that stuff always goes, that's always been a thing. You always watch what you eat, you always watch what you do. A lot of families are like that. So it is a lot different that it's how should I phrase this on? Like a culture thing that just everyone just pushed for so many years on it. So the fact that it was that mentality, it's hard to break out of that realm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you did to find love. And then for you, Brie, what was your dating history like?
So funny enough, no. So when I sort of got into this body liberation stuff, someone who was really questioning my move into this concept really called me out and was like, I've noticed the men you date and they're not larger, they're not plus size. And I was like, I'm going to be honest with you, I never thought about that. And it occurred to me that I typically dated really athletic men because that at that time was what I wanted for myself. So I thought if I date a skinny guy, like somehow I'm also going to get skinny, like I'm just going to do it too. And so like when that realization sort of came to me, I was like, you know what, it's not necessarily a preference like that's deep rooted. It was more like something I was doing because I thought it would make me something else. And so I started not, I guess, discriminating based on body size and started just being like, I'm just going to swipe on a bunch of people who have like, interesting bios or, who look really fun and just see what happens.
I love that you're okay with being honest about that, because I think a lot of us, oh my goodness, I think a lot of us will do that, especially those of us when we're still in the diet culture of it. I'm not sure as much on the guy side, but I definitely know on the women's side, we'll be like, okay, if this guy is in shape, I know I want to get in shape, or so I want to date this person who will help me or who will be supportive of like that certain lifestyle that I'm aspiring to. Because like you said, you think you'll date them and then you'll magically start wanting to do all those things. Because in your mind, you're telling yourself, oh, I want to be like that. So let me find the guy who is like that and we'll just sync on and live happily ever after. And that sometimes creates a barrier for yourself that you don't need to create.
It's like if I date the guy who goes to the gym 7 days a week, then I'll also go to the gym. And then even all the times I've done that before and didn't get thin, like magically now it will work.
Yeah. So when you guys did start dating though, what was that like as far as your dating options, accessibility to places, finding things to do? Did you run into any difficulties?
No, you know what? Not really. I would say, I feel like this happens, like all married people probably say this, but when we met, we were slightly smaller than we are now. So I would say we would probably have classified ourselves to as small to mid fat. So those sort of things weren't something we necessarily thought of at that time. In being married, we've definitely put on some weight. I mean, we went through a pandemic, the world happened.
Yes.
And so now it's probably something we think about more than we did then. And also now we're just more forward. Like, even if I think about like a few days ago, we went out to a place to eat and I was like, this is the most uncomfortable chair I've ever sat in. And probably prior, I would have just sat in a really uncomfortable chair the entire time. But I was like, looked at the waiter and I was like, can I have that chair from that table? And they were like, yeah, of course. So, we probably put up with a lot of things before that we maybe now spend some time thinking like, I don't need to, and I don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's very true. Honestly, it was probably about 3 years ago. I broke 300 pounds and I started noticing a lot of things I couldn't do anymore. Like trampolines. I can't go jump on a trampoline without possibly breaking it or not jumping right or sending someone through the roof. Stupid things.
No. We went to a birthday party that was at one of those jump zones. And you were jumping.
Yeah.
Funny enough, she brings this up. I got stuck in the pit and it took 4 people to get me out.
True.
Oh, no.
the foam pit. But other than that, you weren't jumping.
But the point is, though, there's a lot of things you got to be carry on. Like, if you're over 250 for a lot of places, you got to start watching like certain airplane or certain airlines will charge you for 2 seats, or you can't go flying on a helicopter because you weigh too much, or skydiving. You can't do an assisted jump. That's on my bucket list. I can't do that now.
Yeah.
So there's little things you just got to be wary of.
I guess things we think about, but not a lot of things that we face. Although we're pretty.
I face a lot of wooden chairs. I got to be careful
Yeah.
to sit on
You
those.
don't like wooden chairs.
Funny enough, my father-in-law had one. He just re-teaked a brand new wooden chair, and I sat in it and I sat through it. And he just looked at me and he just started laughing.
Well, it's good that he laughed. Yeah, I think that chairs, and that's part of where we started with AllGo, is finding a seat for everyone, because that's one of the things that you don't really think of as you gain weight. But I know, like, for me, it was one of like my first acknowledgement of the uncomfortableness of it sometimes, was that the chairs at work would like hurt my sides, and I was like, this stinks, you know. But I do want to ask you though, because how did it feel asking for the different chair? Because I used to be mortified at the thought, and now I'm kind of like, yeah, I feel liberated because I am refusing to be uncomfortable for their comfort, and I'm asking for comfort for myself. So like, what do you feel like in those moments?
I think it can go either way, you know. So in traveling the country, we've experienced people who are like extra cautious, and then we've also experienced people who are like kind of rude. Like we recently went into Mexico, and they actually like were intuitive enough to see us looking at the chairs, like, and switched out our chairs before they were like, you know what, like we have some different chairs. So we were shocked because we were like, wow, they like really put some thought into this. And then we recently were in Universal, Florida, and that's probably a big fear for people who are plus size. I mean, we spent the whole day anxious. I read so many articles about rides I thought we could and couldn't ride. And there were a lot of people who were really helpful. Like there are some tricks to it, like the third row seats are bigger than all the other seats, like that you wouldn't know if you didn't read all those articles. And there were some people who would guide us to that, like you might have to wait an extra 2 rounds, but you should really go in row 4, you're going to be more comfortable. And then we also had the experience where we tested out the seats, we were good to go, they told us, okay, you can go, and then they pulled Dave off the ride and said like, you can't go, and made him check 2 more times before they put him back on the ride. And I had no idea where he was because I was already on the ride. Because that was the only downside, we had to ride separately. So you know, I want to say that all the time it feels really good, but like I think how people respond sometimes guides how it feels.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And hopefully we'll get to the point where people aren't being rude or nasty about it and just sort of accept us all. I think that's where we all want to go, right?
Yeah.
So as far as your relationship, if you each had to say what the other person, I'm trying to work on my phrasing of this question, and I rephrase it different every time because I'm trying to get it less confusing, but basically I want you each to tell me what you think the other person's number one pet peeve about you is.
How would I say this without being offensive?
Just lay it on me. Go.
Okay. Probably the biggest pet peeve that I have is that, like, and this is not just of Dave, this is probably of anyone I've ever dated, I have like a really sensitive nose. So if there is like the slightest smell, like breath, body, otherwise, like I can't handle it.
And
I'm just like, I'm like, you smell. Like, so I'm like, you have to brush your teeth. Like, I'm the kind of person who doesn't kiss in the morning before people brush their teeth, because I'm just like, you have slept with that mouth. So that's probably, that probably annoys him the most of what I do, because he's like, you're ruining the moment. Like, you couldn't just let it go for a second. And I'm just like, no, I can't. Right? Is that what? That's
is she right?
Pet peeve of me is when I tell you that you smell.
That's the biggest thing.
What do you think?
My wife's biggest pet peeve.
Well, was she right about yours?
Oh, she's dead on. That's the biggest thing that she does with me constantly. Yes. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this too now. So my lovely wife is super organized, and I mean like very organized as an individual. But she has two things that she hates doing. One is laundry, and two is dishes. But the funny thing is, she'll still try to make the effort to want to try to split the workload on them. So then she'll tell me she wants to do them, and then they'll sit there for 2 days. And then I get looks when I go to do them. I was getting to it. So, but that would be hers. But other than that, for the most part, we're a really good team. We communicate a lot, and
Yeah.
we keep things pretty.
We live like in a 28-foot box, so
You kind of have
there's
to.
only one way that works.
24/7.
No, was he right?
Yeah, that's probably true. I would say that my biggest pet peeve, like, because you're asking him what what my biggest, is that, because like I feel like I'm not contributing, and Dave is we're really into Enneagrams. He's Enneagram 3. That's like a doer. They want to do everything. They want to like, be in charge of a lot of stuff. And so I get like annoyed, especially in RV setting, because he will just like do all these things. And I'll be like, I'm getting to the dishes. And he was like, yeah, you've been getting to them for like 48 hours. And I'm like, no, but I am getting there. Like I'm just working my brain up to it. But
Listen,
I get very mad at him for like doing something sometimes.
I hear you. I feel like we're like the same person right now, because I'm the same way, very organized, but like laundry and dishes are like the bane of my existence. Like there's something about those two things.
It's funny enough, when we used to have a house, we used to have laundry. We'd clean the laundry, go into the room. I would sort it out, it would sit. And I'd have to give it timelines. And then she's like, she used to pull up all these TikToks. Like there's two kind of people that leave laundry piles and people that want to put the laundry away. And she's like, why are you this person? Stop trying to put my laundry.
Laundry is just one of those things, right? Like you wash it and put it away just to take it back out again. It seems so pointless. Same thing, like, not that I don't want my laundry to be clean, I do, but like the folding, I think, is what really kills me.
Yes, because I don't like dirty laundry, so I'm constantly doing my laundry. It's the putting it away, because like you said, to just take it back out again, So I hear you on that one. So what about your love? I want you to each tell me 3 things you love the most about each other.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Oh, put the pressure on me, really. Sure, I'll go first. I love the thoughtfulness that she usually puts into everything. Usually when she wants to give a gift or do something, she puts beyond effort, like the level of consideration and input, or the ideology behind the gift, the emotion behind the gift is beyond what I could even think of. And that goes with her Enneagram 4s. But that would probably be one of the biggest things. The other thing, that she actually communicates. A lot of people I've seen like to shut out and not tell you what they're feeling, not tell you what's going on. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, she will tell me. And to me, that's the world.
Yeah.
That's what makes us work as well as we do, is because we try to really communicate. And she's really good at that. And she's actually, in the course of our time being together, brought more and more of that better out of me. Because trying to talk emotions from a guy's perspective is very difficult. But she's helped pull that better. And what was my third favorite thing? Her spontaneous. I'm living in an RV, quit a job. I went from working 13 days of every 2 weeks with 1 day off to quitting my job and traveling the country. If that doesn't show how much spontaneous this woman can dream up.
Right.
And that's just part of the life. And it's one of the most enjoyable things I could ever say. So those would be my big 3.
That's awesome.
Oh, those are good.
They are good.
I would definitely say communication. There's no way we could get around that. Dave and I communicate a lot. A lot of it's not that we don't fight, but anytime we've ever had a fight, like we always talk things out, and it's kind of been like that since the beginning. And that's sort of one of the reasons I think we kept dating. Like we did have some hardships in the beginning of our relationship, and just being able to talk through them was definitely a big factor. And it's a big factor of living in the RV. we do like weekly sessions where we sit down and ask each other like a set of questions, just to kind of check in even. And so definitely communication. The next I would just say is like fun. Like we just have a lot of fun. We spend a lot of time laughing. I mean, we spent 2 years remodeling our whole house, and I still think like we laughed so hard all the time, even though it was very hard. Like we dated through a pandemic, and we still wanted to be together after being stuck in our home. So I think that's a big factor. Like we like to have fun, however that looks. If that's just sitting around chatting, we play a lot of board games. And then the last is that we're just really open-minded, particularly Dave. He's been really open to, like we talked about before, the concepts of the body liberation and sort of doing all that. And then obviously really open to like, literally one day I was looking at TikTok and was like, let's van life. And he's like, okay. And so he has a way of taking my crazy ideas and making them plausible, like with his open mind. Like he'll be like, okay, so like, how will we pay for that? Where will we get an RV? Like, how will we maintenance it? Where will we go? And so really taking that instead of just sort of shutting me down and being like, no, that's not possible, Breanne. Like we can't quit our jobs. And so I think that's a nice thing about our love, is that everybody's kind of open-minded to the crazy ideas we can sometimes come up with. Not that we don't say no sometimes. Sometimes you gotta say no, but
Yeah.
we at least consider it for a minute.
I love that. I love that you guys seem to have such a great sense of like teamwork and partnership. And because I think that that's one of the most important things to make a relationship work. So, first of all, thank you so much for talking with me today. I love learning more about the two of you. Before you go, though, I always ask, part of the reason why we do these is, because I needed to see love stories when I was younger, and I think other people needed to see them as well. And we don't often see them for people who look like us, right? We get very much painted the narrative of like, there's one way to find and be and accept love. So if you had to talk to the younger version of you, the 18-year-old version of you, what would you tell that person about love and their future?
I would tell myself, don't listen to so many stereotypes, be you. Don't try to be with the norm. Don't try to conform. Just be you, and people will filter in and out of your life, and you'll make it work. I wish I learned that younger than when I did. It took a long time to figure that out.
What would I tell my 18-year-old self? That's tough. You know what I mean? I feel like for women, that's super, super weighted, right? Because those are like some prime years of dieting and body hatred. So I guess if I really had to think about it, I would just say like, just love yourself and do what you love. And that also you deserve better than you think. You deserve someone who worships you and will worship you in whatever body you have, because it literally is the least exciting thing about you is your body, right? Like all the things you do and the fun you have and your mind, all those things are so much more exciting than, the meat suit, so to speak, that you show up to those things in.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that's great advice from both of you. Definitely things that, when you're older, you realize and you wish you had accepted when you were younger. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your love story with us. We loved hearing about you both. And did you have any last words or anything else to share before I let us go?
Yeah, if you don't mind, could we just, I guess, give a little plug for our
Absolutely. No,
okay,
please
great.
do.
So Dave and I, we sold our house in March and we live in an RV, and part of that kind of has to do very similarly to what sort of your mission is to kind of show like we don't see big people, fat people, plus size people doing van life, doing RV life, traveling the country, and it definitely is really possible. And so it's definitely, some days it's frustrating because the RV is definitely not always made for plus size people, but we started running something called Big Couple, Big World. We have a blog, we have Instagram, etc. And that's all it's about, is just sort of like living in our big bodies, kind of doing all the things that we don't normally see plus size people doing all the time. Hiking, not biking, I don't like biking, but hiking, traveling, seeing new places and all of that. And so we would love for people to follow us, or even to hear from other people who maybe do things like that out in the community, in nature, in the outdoors. Anything else?
No, yeah, we definitely want to co-op with people as we're traveling, seeing the world. And honestly, and we're big on figuring things out. Kind of like we started looking at a van to begin with. And van life is plausible if we built a van, but I didn't have 9 months to make a van from scratch. So we found a Class C, but even that, shopping wise, there was only maybe 5 or 6 that were even suitable for a bigger couple like us to live in.
Yeah. No, that's...
So we like spreading that knowledge and learning what we figured out and learned as a big couple. We like telling others.
I love that. And that's part of why I reached out to you guys. I think you're doing great. I want more people to know about you. And because there are many of us who want to travel and do all those things. Are like, oh, could I be in an RV for, that long? So I love it. So please keep sharing with us. And thank you again for your time today. And thank you for those that are watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We have lots of fun videos that we're bringing for you. Lots of love stories. We have our Living Fat, Living Fit, where there's fitness stories, and our Curve the Conversation, where we're talking about activists, fat activists in different fields. So check it all out when you have a moment, and I hope you have a great day.